Welcome. Empowering the individual means empowering the nation. And empowerment is best served with rapid economic growth and rapid social change. Atal Bihari Vajpayee. Welcome to the Guyana Dialogue. I'm your hostess, Shamisa Ali. Tonight, we will discuss the importance of transformative projects on roads, bridges, and sea defenses in Guyana. The Guyana Dialogue is sponsored by a coordinating council of Guyanese based in the UK, Canada, the Caribbean, and Guyana. Funding support is by well known philanthropist Dave Naran from Dave West Indian Imports. Our program tonight is moderated by Professor Moniram Budu. Dr. Muniram Budu is a professor at the University of Arizona. He obtained his doctorate from the prestigious Cambridge University and was the head of the Civil Engineering Department at UG. Professor Budu held faculty positions at Master University, Canada, and the State University of New York at Buffalo. Visiting professorship at St. Catherine College, Oxford University, Swiss Federal Technical University in Switzerland, and the University of Western Australia. He's the author of 4 textbooks in civil engineering and over 100 peer-reviewed articles. Welcome, Dr. Budu. How are you?
Thank you very much. I'm doing very well. And you?
I am doing well. It's a pleasure to have you here this evening. I will now introduce our next speakers for tonight. Dr. Ganga Ramdass, he graduated from the University of Guyana. He has held many prestigious positions in Guyana and the USA. He was head of a unit at Bank of Guyana before proceeding to do graduate work in the US. He holds a PhD in economics. He was a former head of the Department of Economics and Information Technology at Lincoln University. Welcome to you, Dr. Ganga.
Very much.
And our guest of the night, Minister Deodat Indar. He's occupied management positions in businesses across Guyana. He was the president of the Georgetown Chambers of Commerce and Industry. He is minister within the Ministry of Public Works and responsible for the major infrastructural works taking place in Guyana right now. Welcome, Minister Deodat.
Hi, well, thank you very much, Amiza.
And Professor Muniram, I will hand it over to you at this point.
Thank you very much, Shamisa. Honorable Minister Indar, Professor Ganga Ramdass,
Thank you.
welcome to this session of the Guyana Dialogue.
Thank you
I
very much,
extend
Professor.
a warm welcome to our viewers. The Guyana Dialogue is an independent group of Guyanese in the diaspora seeking clarity, fact-based and evidence-based information on developments in Guyana. Honorable Mr. Indar, could you please inform our viewers on the structure of the Public Works Ministry and your portfolio within that ministry?
Okay, thank you very much. So, first of all, the Ministry of Public Works has 2 ministers, Minister Bishop Wanejil and myself. And, well, the ministry is literally one of the largest ministries. The budget of 2022 is reflective of that too, because there was about $96 billion Guyanese dollars allocated to the ministry, and it's mainly in the area of roads and bridges. But we also deal with the sea defenses, all of the traffic system, all of the highways and the byways, the community roads, urban roads. We also deal with the aviation sector, the transport sector, which is the river transport as well. The ministry also has the Guyana National Shipping Corporation under its ambit, as well as the Demerara Harbor Bridge and the Chetty Jagan International Airport. We also have all of the hinterland. You know, Guyana is coastal and hinterland, so all of the hinterland infrastructure, like the roads and the bridges and the airstrips and so on, are under our ministry. So that is, in a nutshell, a 30,000 feet view of what we do here.
Well, I want to stay with you. Could you identify and describe some key roads, bridges, and sea defense work that you're doing now? In particular, I would like you to give our viewers some information, the planning that went on to these structures and how they were executed, and what are the benefits to the Guyanese public.
Well, Professor, everything we do is to the benefit of the Guyanese public. So maybe I could just go through what went into the planning of
Mm.
this implementation. So it started when we were in the opposition, the People Progressive Party. We developed the manifesto and we took it to the electorate, to determine exactly in that manifesto what we intend to do for the country in every aspect of the country. With respect to infrastructure, there are various aspects to infrastructure, but the ministry deals mainly with the, as I just laid out a couple of them. But let me just go into a couple of them that we are doing now.
Mm.
So, as you know, we are an oil and gas economy, meaning that we are now producing oil. 2019 to now, we've been producing, and that production is, or exploration and production is happening 2 to 3 times faster than anywhere else in the world. So to go in tandem with that speed of development, you have to make sure onshore activities can support the offshore activities. So, which brings me to something that I neglected to say earlier. The Maritime Administration and the Transport and Harbors also fall under the ambit of public of the Ministry of Public Works. So, again, what I what I want to say is that this ministry literally touches every single Guyanese when the day is up. So, some of the main projects that we're working on with respect to infrastructure. Um, the first one I will say is that with the budget that we have, about $76.7 billion alone in our budget, and this Guyanese I'm talking about. I haven't converted it to United States dollars for your viewership, but what we have is a flurry of highways and community roads and different kind of access, opening of access within Georgetown and so on. I can go through a couple for you quickly. I keep
Please do.
getting I keep getting a little bother with the WhatsApp thing on my screen, so I might as well take it off because it continues to bother me and
Okay.
distract me. So let's take some of the big ones. Only about maybe 2 weeks ago, we have signed one of the biggest construction contracts in the history of our country, which is the Linden to Mabura Road. So, for long, long years now, we have been talking about linking um, Guyana and northern Brazil. So, we just signed the we call the first phase of it, which is about 190 million US. And that is about 121 kilometers of highway. There are still more to be done to meet LETEM. So there's about 330 more kilometers to meet LETEM, which will connect you further into northern Brazil so that goods can move to and from Brazil. And we can bring that into Guyana so that you have the ports here that can move it further afield into the region and other destinations. So that is one of the big projects that we have just signed. Following that, the new Demerara Harbor Bridge is something, as you know, before the show started, Shamiza was saying about the traffic. And the traffic in Guyana, if you're from Guyana, people from the diaspora, they know about the traffic. And what happened is that we have, since we came into government, we've been running at breakneck speed to do everything pertaining to the financing, the development, financing, and procurement of this new Demerara Harbor Bridge, and maybe about yeah, just a week after the signing of the Linden to Mubura Highway, we signed with a company out of China, the China Rail Company. Um, that company is contracted now to build the new Demerara Harbor Bridge. I think the price tag on that is 260 million US, and the completion time is 700 days to be exact, 2 years. That will be a large structure. It's a hybrid bridge, meaning there's a is a hybrid between a cable stay and a box guarded bridge. Um, it's two carriageway but 4 lanes. You have a cycle lane. It will be fixed, so the high span will be a fixed high span. The It will be at about 210 meters in width, so that you can have both traffic on both coming and going, and then it can accommodate maybe like a handy max type of container ship to go to and fro without being affected. So the height from the way called the mean watermark to the bottom of the bridge, it's about 50 meters around there. So that is a transformative project that the ministry is also dealing with. In another maybe week and a half from now, we will also enter into contract with an Indian company to build a 4 lane highway from Ogle, from the airport to a community that we call Eccles on the East Bank, to bring traffic from the East Coast further into the, who doesn't want to come into the city, or persons who want to go to the East Coast, they don't have to come into the city. So that can deal with a whole host of traffic on that one side. So those are some of the large ones. Apart from those, we have a number of highways that we're doing. We're expanding the entire Berbice road. We are widening that road, moving the utilities from New Amsterdam straight up to Molson Creek. That's about 86 kilometers of road. We're gonna widen and reconstruct back the entire surface of the road and widen it, so that you can have more, more ease of traffic and so on. If we intend to build the trade system between Suriname and Guyana, we have to make sure that the roads are accommodating of that. We have another set of highways that we're building on in the Region 3 area. So we're going to build a highway from the East Bank, which is around Versailles area, if you know that area properly, to take you till to Parika, which is on the other side, the other river. There's about a 20, I think is about, I'll tell you exactly, about 30 kilometers of road, highway that we're going to build there. But we're also building another 2.5 mile four lane highway from the west coast, like the Crane area, if you're familiar with that area, to bring you straight to the new harbor bridge. So you can able to cut out the traffic that has been happening around the Vridenup area, Planting Walk, into that stretch, taking you to the current harbor bridge. There's a lot of traffic there. So we want to build out those bypass highways. On the East Bank corridor side, where the housing ministry started building some highways, some concrete highways connecting Mandela to Eccles, and then now Eccles to the community of Diamond. And we are also looking from Diamond now to Timeri to extend that highway. We're also doing the reconstruction of actually the entire paving from Soesdijk to Linden. That entire stretch will be repaved. We should be able to close up that arrangement and the financing for that by the end of the year. There's also a widening and actually refurbishing the entire surface from the community of Diamond to Chedijagan International Airport, and that will commence sometime this year as well. And we are opening up some new highways on the East Coast as well, to Mahika side. So those are just some of the road networks and maybe the bridges that we are looking at. But I'm also attached to the office of the Prime Minister, where I assist the Prime Minister in managing the energy sector. And the energy sector have a lot of we call, as you call it, transformative infrastructure that is going on to. So we are looking at the gas to energy plant, as you heard Vice President on many occasions spoke at length about the gas to energy plant, and that is going to the Wales area. So that will assist with energy infrastructure, and that will be about 300 megawatts of power coming out from that plant when it's finished, and that will have to be fed into a system, the current GPL grid, but it will come in at 230,000 volts. So you'll have to build a plant. You'll have to build what you call an NGL plant with it. You'll have to pipe the gas from offshore to bring it on shore, and then you'll have when it reaches the shoreline, you'll have to come in from. There's a place called Mary's on Region 3 side. It will land there, and then you'll have another about 25 kilometers inland to take it to Wales. So that is another 20 billion Guyanese dollars for the first year in our budget. So that project is one of the major infrastructure to deal with the energy side. But we have a whole host of energy projects on the table too, like these grid tie solutions. So we have about 33 megawatts of we call renewable grid tie um, system that we're going to build. It's already went out to tender, so we just have to award now and start implementing those. So we have a lot of other things we're doing with the airports and so on. We're building the CGI. We're building it to what the glory of that airport should be, and there are a lot of interest on cargo facility, new hangars, and so on.
Mhm.
Similarly, Ogle Airport as well. They are, talking to government, and we have approved their expansion plans are already to expand the airport to make it more, you know, um, into a higher end kind of airport to deal with regional traffic and cargo and so on. So there's a number of infrastructure that we're putting in, whether it's roads and bridges or sea defense, whether it's energy infrastructure, whether it's aviation infrastructure, whether it's health infrastructure and housing infrastructure. Every aspect of the infrastructure of the country is being looked at, and every sector is actually aggressively going after each one of these. So these projects are not just wish lists. They are actually, some of them are already through implementation. Some of them are at the final stage of procurement. Some of them recently was signed with the contractor. Some of them the financing is being finalized. So there's a number of areas that we are looking at, and it's not just with the roads, the bridges, and the sea defenses. The entire infrastructure of the country, the ICT infrastructure is being looked at as well, and that is through the office of the Prime Minister. So there's a number of things we are doing in Guyana. So at least that is in a nutshell, and at a surface level view of the amount of major stuff that we're doing here.
Yeah, most of the structures that you outlined there are actually new structures. Uh, you got about 17% of the budget. Is that correct?
Of the capital budget, no, we had a little more for the capital budget.
Yeah. How much of that you're doing for rehab and maintenance work?
Well, the maintenance depends on what you determine as rehab, because in our engineers here, they say when you're rehabilitating a road, it can be sectional repairs, and if you're repairing a road, it can be like just potholes and so on. So
Mhm.
the budget for last year on the repairs line for roads and so is only about 2 billion Guyanese, but that is for pothole and so on. It's not for like construction of new
I
roads,
see.
overlaying the new roads, or doing what we call partial reconstruction of roads and so. Those form in the capital element of the budget.
I see. Professor Ramdass, some Guyanese, hopefully a minority of them, make statements such as roads do not feed people. As an established economist, what is your response to this vain statement?
Well, keying off on the projects Minister Deodat mentioned, I would look at the activities that are planned for the future and how we cater to that given the environment, which is also prone to flooding. So I would look at the separation of activities and the different modes of transportation that we provide for those activities. Now, when we're building new roads, we have to integrate that into the framework of plans that Minister Deodat mentioned. But I'm not seeing that happening right off the bat. That's probably for the future, but we have to cater to that. We have to set aside lands that would build roads, and the roads must have multiple functions, especially the link roads and the feeder roads. If there's a flood, or animals should have a refuge to go on top of those roads, especially in the rural areas. So, taking an activities approach that we plan for the future, we would design and build our road systems to feed into the main systems. Now, the sugar plantations and estates had that system in place. They had back roads and back dams roads where industrial and field activities were separated from passenger transportation. So the separation can be physical, and it can also be economic in terms of user cost pricing that we apply to these facilities, and also to separate by time of night and time of day to move goods and people and animals in the future. So that's the broad nature of the approach that I would take, and integrate that with the existing projects. We may need to have more facilities, more lands, and then we may have to do surveys and demarcation of property rights boundaries. And there are three classes which we can develop later. These rights, especially in the farm areas, are very important for users of all types and vehicles of all types. We may have to have separate lanes for different classes of vehicles. Just building a four-lane highway doesn't guarantee that it will take off all of the traffic flows. So we'll have to make provision for bays, for time of day travel, especially specialized travel. You recall when we had the bulk sugar facilities, that was a real nuisance on the East Bank Road from Diamond to Rumfelt. And I suppose the other sugar estates had those kinds of problems as well. So, depending on the industrial activities that we plan in the future, we will have to design a system and a feeder system that integrates, economically speaking, with both activities and user cost. So, those are my preliminary remarks on the using roads for economic transformation.
Mhm. Minister Indar, what is your response to that statement? Roads do not feed people.
Well, that might be true, but there's the other side to that argument that if you don't have the road, how you gonna get the food to the people,
Correct.
right? If you don't have the road, how is it that the farmer
Mhm.
gets his produce to the market? And we have been investing significantly in farm to market access roads.
Mhm.
Remember, costs, costs, and costs. If a road is not even passable, how do you think that farmer gets his produce from his farm to a market so that we can eat? We all can eat. Yes, they have to be somewhere that he get somewhere that he had to get that produce from the farm to the market. In some areas, it's fine. Maybe they have a trench or a canal. They can use a boat to bring out their stuff. But when they don't have that, and you have to traverse through land, and the dams are bad, and you can't come out with your whether you have a canter, if you have a small van or something, and you can't go to bring out your produce, you have to use tractors, right? And most areas they use tractors, destroys the road in the rainy weathers. Now, what happened there is that it carries up your costs, and that cost is reflected in what you buy at the market. So roads, are important. They are very important to economic livelihood. Farm to market roads, um, as Mr. Ramdas mentioned, about different class of roads and the back roads that the sugar plantation used to use in the past. They are still there. They are still there. They are still being used. But some of these highways and so that I have detailed out is mainly into new areas, into lands that there were no housing and so before. It's opening up of new lands. So when the road goes there, um, it's massive economic expansion happens around that road. Let me just give you a quick example. We just open up the um, Mandela, where the roundabout is there, and we open out the 4-lane highway to Eccles. Just a short piece of highway, relatively broad and so, but all the lands on the right and the left of that become highly valued real estate. And that is happening now at the back of Diamond because the highway is going at the back of Diamond and will happen straight up to Timiri. All of the lands now, the front lands would have been on the existing highway taking you to the airport, or when you're coming from the airport coming down to the city. Those are termed the front lands. Now the front lands are at the back. And with oil and gas and all of those other requirements that are needed, warehousing is needing, all different kind of storage, all different kind of facilities needed. Huge complexes go up there. So housing system, high-end housing system. So it creates what you call community economy with these new areas that we are pushing through. The one that will the highway that will go from Schoonard area where the harbor bridge is and connect you to Crane, that will open up a whole lot of lands at the back there. The one from Versailles around Versailles in Region 3 to take you to Perico, that will open up thousands of acres of land, and it will create farming. People can have better access to their farmlands. They can have housing areas at the back there. They can have livestock farming. They have a whole host of opportunities that will open up with that road. And once you have more production or productive capacity, and you put out more produce into the market, it pushes down prices and people benefit. So it is a long answer to a short question, Professor. But I believe that, it's which what you call, one of those catchy phrases that people say, roads don't feed people or something like that. It's true on one side, but the argument, is that coin have two faces.
Right.
So
Okay, thank you very much. Now, the president, you, I know Minister Edghill, and other ministers have regularly complained about non-performance or poor performance of contractors on infrastructural works. The latest I saw on a video on June the 3rd by Minister Edghill. These transgressions by contractors are robbing the Guyanese people and can derail the works that you described earlier. Obviously, there's a lack of proper project management and program management. I also understand that Guyana has no building codes and standards. What are the lessons that the government learned from defaulting contractors? And what solutions are in place to prevent contractors from these transgressions?
So, Professor, Guyana do have building codes. I mean, we are a republic, but a lot of the building codes collapse, especially in the city and so on. So I'll deal with that one first, to just address that one. Now, with respect to contractors' performance. So when we came into government, there was a pool of contractors. And that pool, the collective capacity of that pool could have only done so much within a given year, taking into consideration rainy days and so on, and time procurement period and so on. Now, what you have is a massive amount of spending in capital, and you have the same pool of contractors. And the contractors that are bidding on roads and bridges are also building on schools, they're bidding on hospitals, they're bidding on all different kind of things, building stuff. They're building hinterland roads, they're building on the airport, they're building on anything that you have that are a construction of in nature, they bid on it. So one contractor sometimes have multiple projects in multiple ministries, and that spreads the person thin, especially if they don't have the resources. Now, they will be performing good in one area and bad in the other area. It doesn't mean that the contractor is a bad performer. It means simply if you fill a man's plate, you make him ineffective. So, what we have been doing as a government, when we are looking at procurement and we are looking at the ability of a contractor to execute. Because if a person has a huge job over in housing ministry and they win maybe three other new big jobs in our ministry, and let's say local government, clearly you will have to assess the contractor's ability to execute multiple jobs. And that is when you run into the trouble. Now, how do you deal with that? Now, you can use a big stick policy if a contractor was warned over and over and over and over and over again. You have to reach a point where you have to draw the line in the sand. But what we have also done, Professor, is that we have told publicly other people to get into the business so that they can come and pick up some of the smaller contracts. Because what you have, if you drill down on the problem, what you have is some large contractors sometimes bid for the small jobs and it choke out the small men. So what we're trying to do now is bring in small people into the system so that they can develop capacity. And they take up the small jobs and learn from them and build capacity from them, whilst the big contractors deal with the big projects. So they're not, nobody's spread it too. And that has been something that's happening to us all the time. Like all of the contracts that we sign now, a huge percentage of the awardees are people who never did work for the ministry, but do have equipment. They have engineers, they have people with skill and experience, but they never got into it because maybe they believe they didn't have a chance. But now they are getting into it, and some of them are doing good job. We do have issues where contractors are negligent, where some of them are, they open up a road and they can't finish it and months have passed by, and the residents are, rightfully so, upset about what's going on. And they report, my phone get about 1,000 messages about anybody road that is bad or any contractor that is too long opening up a road. They will send messages to you. They will tag you in posts and all kind of things. So you see what's going on and you go visit. It's unfair to the citizenry to have something that's supposed to be done in 3 months, taking 6 months. At that point, obviously, the engineer would have had multiple conversations with the contractor. But sometimes contractors have different excuses for different things. Sometimes it's the weather, sometimes we're not getting enough crusher on stone. There's always some issue, but sometimes it's just poor management. It comes down to poor management. So you have to take, stringent action. And we do have some tools. We do inform the tender board whenever, the national tender board, that is when contractors are not performing, so that they are aware that, if a contractor is not performing, if you give him more work, is that you're setting him up for the failure.
Mm-hmm.
That's the first thing. We also have liquidated damages that we put in place that, is some kind of, deterrent for them to finish the work. So we do have cases like those. Only recently I visited a number of sites, found a couple of them not to my expectation. I dealt with the contractor informally and tried to see how they can, put multiple teams on a particular project to speed it up. But at the end of the day, you can use multiple approaches to dealing with errant contractors. But if contractors are trying and they are trying to build capacities, you have to help them too as much as you can. But they are bidding for work. They have a contractual obligation once they sign that they are They say they're going to do this, and they're contractually signed and obligated to do it. They have to finish it. It's not government job to handhold anybody to some extent, but you're building a country, and you have to build it collectively.
Mhm.
So any way that you can work with people to help them, you do that. But some people, sometimes, as I say, you got to draw the line in the sand from time to time.
Uh, Thank you. Is it correct for me to say then that you have a shortage of experienced contractors and perhaps labor also in the construction industry? And if so, what is the government doing about this?
Well, put it this way: we have built, like, the new ports that we have in Guyana, like the Guyana Shore Base that we have. We have another port at the John Finance area there. Those were done by local contractors, and those are ports that are certified for international vessels to operate out of. That Exxon and other tier one contractors have certified those ports, and they're built by local people. We have had highways built by local people too. Very good. At least the economic life of the road has maintained before it started to ravel out. We do have, for large projects, you need the kind of experience that, like what we did with the Harbor Bridge.
Mm.
It's a large Chinese contractor, China Rail, that is going to do that bridge. The company that is awarded for the road from Linden to Mobura Hill, it's a Brazilian company called QG. So those are big companies that are doing these large projects. Normally, when they come in country too, they normally subcontract the local guys too. So the, there's not a straight answer to that question. It's a mixed answer. So in the community roads, like, let's say, in where you're from, Windsor Forest. Somebody told me they were from Windsor Forest earlier.
Yes, sir. Mm.
Yeah. So in Windsor Forest, these are small community road, maybe 10 feet in width
Mm.
or 12, 14 feet in width. We have local capacity to do that. You don't need foreign contractors to do those small jobs. Our people know how to do that. The big highways, the new concrete highways that we're doing, and so we have local guys, like the one that we did through the housing ministry. Is about 12 local guys that built out that highway in 1 year. So we do have some capacity. If we're going to deal with all of those, massive broad highways that you have, like in Houston or in Miami, and so obviously you'll need some international experience, on board. That will, they will bring that long history and experience with them to Guyana. But we do have some local capacity. When it comes to the labor, though, we have the last labor survey I saw. Guyana has about 251,000 persons in the ranks of the employed. That's the labor survey that I got, a report that I saw. And, well, as the economy is growing, now the economy grew significantly, double digit all the time since we came into office. And this year is going to grow somewhere around 47.9%. 2 days ago, I saw the World Bank saying so. So when the economy is growing, that means it's more ramped up activity. When government is also spending more, because our budget this year is 552 billion, somewhere in that neighborhood, and that there is the biggest budget ever in the history of our country. It means that more activity is happening, and it means it requires more material, so that we got to get more crusher run, we got to get more asphalt, we got to get more cement, we got to get more loom, more sand, and we got to get more labor. So when there's price start to go up for people who are building housings, like those, we call private housing development. When labor started, we have a couple of that going on in the country. We are building low cost housing. It's pulling labor all the time. We have a whole host of roads that we're doing, hundreds of them. Only in Region 6 alone, we'll do 300 roads this year. And then Region 3, Region 10, Region 4. We are all the regions, we're doing a number of roads. It's sucking up all of the labor that you have. So when they started have that huge demand, the price for an excavator operator now is gone up. The price for skilled man now has moved up. The price for a porter to employ has moved up. So it's natural when you have this level of growth that you will end up shortages in pockets in society, not broad like broad across the horizon, but in every strata on of employment, you'll find pockets of shortages throughout the economy. So you will find that, and you're finding that prices are going up because people are demanding a little more now for their labor.
Mhm. Professor Ramdas, the negative factors such as contractors' transgression and some of the labor shortages that the minister just mentioned here have economic impacts and can stymie the developments that the minister outlined. What are your thoughts on these and the possible solution? And I know
Yes.
the minister have actually pointed out some of the solutions they
Yeah,
are working on.
Minister Indar has adequately outlined some of these
Mhm,
issues that can turn into problems and
mhm,
bottlenecks within the
mhm,
system. So, what we need are supporting services which can be of an entrepreneurial nature. That's another side opportunity. In the United States, we have a system of contract compliance. I used to attend their meetings, the Atlantic Contract Compliance Association. So their professionals meet and they discuss problems and how to solve those problems. Guyana could encourage the formation of contract compliance associations and organizations to assist in these uh, projects so that they run smoothly. The other aspect is performance bonds. I've not heard about that, but maybe there's the equivalent. uh, some of these associations can specialize in looking at performance bonds within a system of, say, standard costing, so that when you have materials, if it's iron and concrete, they are subject to certain tests. If it's iron, it should be hardened with cobalt. It shouldn't be just bare iron encased in concrete. So you need tests, you need supporting services to ensure that there are adequate quality control. And then you need monitoring systems using standard costs so that you can calculate variances and deviations by these individual contractors. Now, the contracting processes itself should be monitored so that one contractor with limited capabilities do not take more than they can handle. So my father had three dump trucks. So we leased a sand pit at Sus Dike, and we transported sand and loam for the Mahika Maikoni Highway and the Lindian highways. So we supplied those materials there, and those materials were integrated with subcontracting. So there were prominent lawyers in the city that were given a chunk of the project, and they, out of their offices, they subcontracted to the smaller businesses. So you can look at my father with three trucks. That was a small business, family-owned business. So you would have opportunities that could spread across the country for individuals that could take a loan, buy trucks, and benefit from the subcontracting opportunities. So government doesn't have to get involved in subcontracting itself, but it could be delegated with someone that has the time and resources to look into subcontracting. Or you could have associations like the contract compliance associations. Those folks could take up the opportunities, take a slice, a big slice, and then parcel it off so that the benefits of subcontracting filters down to the bottom so that a family somewhere can take a loan, buy a truck, and and provide services in the transportation sector. So I have a first-hand understanding of how that transformation transformed my family, me driving a donkey and cart and delivering firewood, to dealing with machines, tree trucks, servicing the truck, and do various things there, you know. So those are some of the thoughts there. The entrepreneurial activities can be spun around the services needed for quality controls in the transportation sector.
Minister Indar, your current contracts, do they have performance bonds on them?
Yes, I was going to add to what
Mm.
Comrade Ramdas said just now. But so before you get any funds for contracts, you have to provide a mobilization bond from an insurance company. Remember, insurance, the whole purpose of insurance is risk transfer.
Mm.
So the mobilization bond is one of the requirements. We also have performance bond. So we have contractors or risks, we have employees liability. Depends on the size of contract and the type of contract, public liability insurance, and so on. But most times you have mobilization bond and performance. So we do have that. But that is just a recourse tool. Remember, in a community, and I took Windsor Forest because Professor Budu, you are from Windsor Forest.
Yes,
Just
sir.
see a contractor go there and open up the road and can't finish the road, and months have passed by. The road is becoming, they put the loom, and then the rain start to fall. And the loom becomes soppy, and you got to walk through that or drive through that or ride through that. It starts to upset the neighborhood. So what you have here, regardless of the recourse via performance bond or a mobilization bond to make sure that, and then we have a retention too. At the end of the contract, we retain a percentage of it. I think it's around 5% of the contract value to make sure that the work doesn't, fail and you have to go back and fix it. But it's the cost to the community that is more important when contractors don't perform as they should. Now, I must say this to you. We built hundreds of roads since we came into government in 2020, 2021, and 2022 is much larger. We are building roads all over. The problem with contractors not finishing it is not a, what you say, is not an issue that will cause loss of limb. It's not an issue that is so prevalent across the government. There are some of them that are delinquent, and you have to deal with that. But most times the work is finished. Most times your implementation, your work is finished. So I wanted to make that point. On the issue of subcontracting, various contract terms have the different kind of arrangement. But sometimes you can't subcontract the entire contract. You can only subcontract a part of it, right? Because the responsibility is with the contractor that the government of Guyana gets involved with. Like I give you the example, the Sino-Hydro contract that we had with the sheriff to Mandela Highway that we came into government with. They subcontracted a number of local guys to do the paving and the bridges and bring in the stone and the sand and so on. A lot of people were subcontracted. So some contractors do that when they don't have the capacity. Some of them don't. It's a case by case thing. There are provisions in some of the contracts to have a bigger part subcontracted than others. But it is a tool to help you. But why go bid for something that you know you can't do? Why go bid for something that you know you can't do? There is hardly times that you find when you go out to tender that you don't get bids coming in. People are bidding, and some people are winning the contracts and some are not. So we have to look at the problem from different prisms. So I do subscribe to some of the things Comrade Ramdas said, but these problems you have to really do a good drill down on them to understand them properly, to formulate the solution.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
in this job, I mean, I'm not an engineer. My background is finance and business and economics and tax. So somebody was talking about taxation, and that is what I came. That is where I came from.
Mm,
So um, coming here at this ministry, it's common sense. It's literally common
mm,
sense. You
mm,
go and you listen to people, and you listen to the people on the ground. That is more important.
mm.
So even if an engineer comes to tell you something that is not in keeping with what you know from the ground, well, then you can have a conversation about how to do things differently and do it better. You know?
All right. Now, you've described a lot of infrastructure works going on in Guyana. I now want to look at the outlook and the challenges that you have as you face the 21st century. Now, Guyana, with its newfound wealth and a small population, in my view, is in a unique position to leapfrog technologies. Does the government have any master plan or blueprint considering autonomous vehicles, intermodal transportation system, intelligent transportation system, and all of those must consider climate change?
Okay, so I will have to answer this question in tranches, right? So
Mm,
let me just go back to if the government has a plan. The government do have a plan. Our plan is anchored right now. It first started with the manifesto and the manifesto promises that we made to the people of the country, which had significant in every sector they had what we're going to do. And that is what we're doing year by year in the budget. And then we have launched the low carbon development strategy expanded 2030. In that strategy, it deals with every aspect of the economy, and it deals with every aspect of the economy in light of a low carbon development pathway. So we have expanded it because it have another. There were three objectives in the first one that was launched in 2008 forward. It's over 13 years ago, led by Dr. Barajagdio when he was president. And this one here, launched by President Ali, has a fourth objective, which is aligning Guyana with global climate targets and so on. And that strategy guides where we are going. Now, with respect to transportation, which red is river transportation, air transportation, or ground transportation, um, naturally, you will find that the private sector, although government will do some level of mandate, we have to be real too. Guyana is a net carbon sink, meaning that our ability to store carbon and sequester carbon far, far, far outstrips the amount of emissions that we generate from our industries, from shipping, from industry, from power plants. So we are a net carbon sink. So we are leading the world in this stead. Now, with respect to these technology that you spoke of, or in the transport technology, we are going in the direction of the rechargeable cars and so on.
mm,
But what is it that the cars are using to recharge? Let's be frank. They're using power that is generated by combustion engines at GPL that uses high we call heavy fuel or HFO, which is a black fuel, is a dirty fuel that
mm,
have a lot of CO greenhouse gas emissions. So we have to look at that. So what we are doing, we are trying to transition away from this heavy fuel into using natural gas, which is half as bad as these heavy fuel oils are with respect to greenhouse gas emission, to develop our energy supplies. That is why we talk about the gas to energy project that will now put into the grid cleaner energy, not completely clean like renewable, but it's cleaner than what we have currently. So they will reduce our emissions into the atmosphere. So that is the first thing, is where the generation is happening. On the consumption side now, in terms of the kind of vehicles that we put on, I believe that it will be as we go by and we develop as a country, it will be a natural transition into these things. right? Because the charging stations need to be in place. A whole set of things, infrastructure have to be in place. People have to be able to afford it, and so on. So you have to look at how your country is, where the average income level per person per family is, to see if they can afford those kind of technology, transportation as well. With respect to the public transit systems now, like trams, and if you have those to move people around, and so, we don't it's not an issue that I would say that is a front born issue right now, because we have a lot of roads to fix every day. Somebody have some housing scheme is showing you some bad road. We have to develop the primary infrastructure for us, and then you build on that. So leapfrogging is a good concept that we can use, but it has to be used smartly, because you can't go saying that you want fancy cars and all this and the roads are bad. You can't even drive the cars on the road. You gotta fix the roads for us. You can't say you want to charge cars and you want to go on a big rampage to get all of them using charging port, but yet we have the generation of the fuel is negating um, what you're doing with the cars, the rechargeable cars. So we have to look at it in a smart way. But I'm saying that I believe it will be a natural transition as the country develop. All of these industry will develop. I'll just give you a quick example. Over the past couple of days, we had three things that we went to launch. MMG Plus technology is helping us at the Harbor Bridge with this Easy Pass system. So that you have to pay cash, you can just go through the Harbor Bridge easily now. So technology is now finding its way into that. We Yesterday I opened something with the Sol gas station where they're using the MMG app to pay for fuel, so you don't have to find cash, you don't use your plastic, and so on. So technology is finding its way at that level. This morning, I launched something with the Georgetown Chamber of Commerce where they're using technology to create a platform to link local private sector with foreign investors. And this is happening throughout the country. Everybody is developing their business, making it transition from paper system into paperless system. They are moving their business processes and they're developing so that they become more mature and less costly. So when the country is developing, all of these things normally go with that development. So I believe that we have to just manage and craft how that process happens so that it doesn't go out of control.
Uh, Professor Ramdas, what is your thoughts on this? And
Well,
you think the minister is saying the right things?
the minister has outlined many development activities.
Mhm.
What I would like to see is that there are separation into the, let's say, the agri sector, the agricultural processing sector, and export processing zones. So when we have these activities parceled out like that, we will have a more logical feeder road system. And then if it is scaled up so that we need a more robust, a massive structure or a larger structure, a network of roads, we have the means to fund that. And the means of funding that would be through infrastructure development bonds. And for that, I think we should start thinking about an infrastructure development bank. The U.S. has already has that enacted in Congress. It needs to be implemented practically, but that is something that we need to think about, so that as we develop from the ground up, we can also scale up to meet the future requirements, and that needs to be part of the plan, an integral part of the plan. How we tap into the development bonds. There are lots of windfall profits that are being made, but those companies don't have the opportunity to reinvest those monies into Guyana. They're making it in Guyana and taking it elsewhere to be spent, just like the old uh, system of exploitation that we had. Well, we don't have to describe it like that. We create the opportunities for them to reinvest in Guyana so that Guyana don't end up in small enclaves and the same old housing scheme structure that we had during the colonial days in the last 50 years. We need to look at networks, traffic networks, activities networks, and how our population, our entrepreneurs can plug into those systems and make use of those networks. There are lots of investments being made, and we ought to be able to use it and encourage individuals to use these networks profitably to turn out higher values. So while the minister has outlined the groundwork, we need to also position ourselves for scaling up and becoming much bigger, commensurate with the dollars that are being spent. So the gas to electricity is a worthy project, but we need to look at the users and the locations and the types of activities that will take place, and then bring in our local entrepreneurs to plug into that system. So I need to see that as part of the groundwork, the new superstructure that would be the overlay on the whole economy.
Minister Indar, would you like to make some closing
Yeah,
remarks?
yeah, Professor. On the last one with the gas, the energy, on the user and the location, I didn't to understand what Comrade Ramdas was trying to bring over there. But I
Mm,
just want to talk about. I do agree with him
mm,
on the processing centers and have these economic zones, free zones, and so on. And that is the thinking of our government. You will see in short order, things will be coming out with respect to those, because they are key. All of the models, if you look for across the globe for industrialization of any economy, these are key tools in terms of having various zones. One of the zones, industrial zones, you will see firstly coming out is the Wales Development Authority, where the gas to energy project will be, where the NGL plant will be, and our government is currently looking at a gas utilization master plan. So I do agree with him to some extent about separation of processing centers and having the agri zones and so on. On the infrastructure development bank, maybe we ought to try that one on emphasize a little, because uh, sources of funding for infrastructure projects, if it's a government-led project, the government finance it. Some of them we do get bilateral financing from other countries, some Exim banks or lending institutions like the IDB, CDB, and so on. Right. So we do get some amount of funding for those bigger projects. For large projects, also we do now have we do have oil revenues now, and it comes in at budgetary support in our last budget in case we want to go to do projects that are will better the lives of our people, right? So we do have some level of access to financing for the infrastructure projects. And you remember, you have to pace the development as you go about. You can't just have, you shock the economy and then you have overheating in the economy, and prices start to skyrocket for basic crusher run basics. The loom pits stop producing, they carry up their price. The sand pits start to carry up their price. It happened last year. We had to intervene to deal with these things. So you have to look at that too as a effect of, if you have too much overheating in the economy. On the issue of contractors using their money to invest elsewhere and capital flight, I didn't, or we have not seen evidence of capital flight in Guyana since we took government from 2020 to now, simply because if on any given day I come to office, there's a long list of people to see me. And I'm just one of the ministers in our government. Every day, there are numerous people in this country. In a couple of years, maybe like 2018, 19, 20, 21, the amount of companies that are registered by law firms is mind blowing that are coming to the country. So there are a lot of people that are coming into country, a lot of inward investment that is happening. So, and a lot of our Guyanese folks are investing now in country because we call the intrinsic value of assets goes up now. You buy a plot of land now, a month later, the price has gone up. You buy a house now, a month later, the price gone up. So Guyanese people are investing in country now. We have a host of foreigners that come in to buy up land, buy up waterfront as they could get it. They're looking for housing system, housing, anything they could get their hands on. They're trying to buy. So there's more capital flow inwards, and there's huge evidence of that, rather than capital flight. So I just wanted to at least clarify that point and to weigh in on it, because we have not seen any evidence of capital flight. It's the complete opposite.
Minister Indar, Dr. Ramdas, thank you very much for your participation. Minister Indar, particularly to you, your candid responses is well appreciated. Thank you, viewers, and to all, good night. Please tune in next week at the same time for another session of the Guyana Dialogue. Thank you, Samiza, and it's over to you.
Thank you. Have
Thank
a good
you.
evening, everyone.
Thank
Thank you
you.
very much.
Oh,
Thank you.
my apologies. So tonight we heard about infrastructure. I felt most of the program tonight we heard everything infrastructure. We heard about Linden to Mabura Road, bridging Guyana and Brazil. We heard about the new Demerara Harbor Bridge, which I'm so excited about. A hybrid bridge, a four-lane highway from Ogle, right? We also heard about the Borbees Road for Sales to Parika Highway. All of these things are things that are needed. But when we, just like everything else, I know one saying that you hear a lot is Rome was not built in a day, right? It takes time. It takes, just the other day, Guyana was just a simple country. Now Guyana is on the map, right? But it's going to take time. We have to understand it's 2 years of work. And most of that time we were stuck in a pandemic where a lot couldn't be done. So now we have to take one day at a time. And I listening to Minister Deodat this evening, I heard and I've seen, based on everything that I know, that there is progress happening. And so we need to take the good with the bad. Nothing is going to be perfect, but we just have to take it as it comes, build one at a time, and just keep moving forward. And tonight we are definitely moving forward in Guyana. So I thank all of you for being here. And I look forward to our next session, which is next week. Thank you to all our viewers that are looking right now. Thank you for your kind comments and have a good evening.
Thank you.
Thank you.